We begin with Rob Gronkowski, retired Patriots Super Bowl winning tight end, and current CBD advocate and investor. He is all in.
Yeah, he's in on it.
He made a promotional appearance, believe it or not, in Toronto this week. And as a result, Sportsnet's own Stephen Brunt had a chance to sit down with Gronk as part of Stephen's Open Table series. Mr. Brunt, as he is apt to do, asked him the tough questions like this one.
It's that time of year. It's autumn. You know, it is the middle of the football season. Your old team's undefeated.
Yeah, they are. It's pretty crazy.
Anything that would, like, is there any part of you that's thinking about playing again? Do you consider it? Does it run through your head more some days than others?
That's a tough question, man. What's helping out is I got to stay busy, too. I mean, if I wasn't staying busy, I'd probably be thinking about it all the time. But I'm staying busy, business stuff, and with Abacus Health, with their brand CBD Medic, and coming out with all my CBD line next year, too, which is great. I'm so busy. I'm traveling around everywhere. So I actually don't even sometimes get the opportunity to sit down and be like, man, I wish I was playing football. So it's just great to be staying busy. But, you know, I love that my options are open, though.
Yeah,
you know,
you're not saying never.
Yeah, I'm not saying never. But I'm saying, like, I love that my options are open. Because if one day I do get that feeling, like, man, you know, if I feel like I need to go back to football, like, it's great to have that option, big time.
I've been hard on the Patriots. If Gronk comes back,
You're in?
that might change my opinion on what this 8-0 means so far in the Patriots.
Because I'm with you from a certain aspect of the Pats.
They might have to change some rules, though, given the CBD line.
Oh, a few.
Right.
Oh, a few. So, again, that's Stephen Brunt with Rob Gronkowski. Nate Burleson of Good Morning Football and CBS Sports has been kind enough to join us. He just listened to the clip that you just listened to in your car and at home, Nate. It's great to see you. Does he come back or not?
You know, I said before the season that Gronk is going to come back week 8, and obviously he's chilling. He has a lot going on. Business is booming, as Antonio Brown used to say. He's working in all these different spaces, TV, sports media, entertainment. Of course, he mentioned the CBD line. I feel like right now his life is so busy, just like he said, that he doesn't have that yearning or that desire to come back to football. But once that slows down, I believe he is. And maybe the ship has sailed on this season because I'm pretty sure he has the next 6 to 12 months mapped out. But what happens after a year of being Gronk the businessman, Gronk the TV personality, and you're sitting back and you're saying, I'm tired of these suits and dress shoes. I want to put on a jersey and cleats. I just feel like after 9 years, he's not done with the game. There's something about his childlike energy when you ask him about football. I remember talking to Calvin shortly after he retired, Calvin Johnson, and the man known as Megatron had zero sparkle in his eye when I talked about football.
Right.
It wasn't about Detroit Lions. It wasn't about the contract situation. It wasn't about him being compared to Barry Sanders. He just didn't want to play football anymore. I don't get that same feeling with Gronk.
You know, it's funny, as you mentioned, Calvin, I know that he has talked in the past about how much cannabinoids have helped him. Do you think that the NFL should reassess their drug policy to update it and or include what Rob is selling here and or others have suggested can help manage pain in NFL players?
Yes, 100%. I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, and I'm not pushing a specific brand, but I tried the CBD, and I was one of those individuals, and let's be very transparent like we always are. I wasn't a weed guy. I didn't smoke weed when I played. It was one of those things that I didn't grow up around, so it wasn't an indulgence for me. So I was a good case study after I got done playing. And the only reason that I wanted to try it was because after one of my surgeries, I was sitting back. My leg was in a harness. I was getting ready to go into another procedure, one of my 7 or 8 surgeries I had during my career. And I remember an older lady coming into the hospital room, and she was one of the nurses. And she said, "I'm concerned about you, honey." And I'm like, "Huh? What are you talking about?" And initially I thought, oh, maybe she just says this to everybody getting ready for surgery, or maybe she saw me play football and she just doesn't like how violent the sport is.
Right.
And she said, "No, I just did your toxicology report, and I've never seen this many toxins in someone's blood." And it was like a wow moment where I've been in so many hospital beds and had so many procedures that it almost became routine. I used to joke about getting anesthesia with my wife, saying that it was the best sleep I ever had. But like in that moment, it all became real. And I try to explain to her, I'm like, oh, no, I don't think you get it. I play football for a living. She's like, I don't care what you do. I was like, yeah, I know that, but I'm just saying, let me explain this to you. So we take like pregame supplements and we take, anti-inflammatories and pain medications, and it's still in my system. Because this was like a day after me breaking my leg, right? So she said, I don't care what your job is. I don't understand football. But what I am telling you is, after working in a hospital in this field for the last 30 years of my life, I've never seen somebody's results come back like that before they went into surgery. So whatever you're doing, you need to stop doing it. And I keep going back to that conversation I had with her because I remember there were guys in the league that said, bro, like, why are you medicating yourself with stuff that the big pharmaceutical companies are pushing you that will kill you from the inside out? And I didn't think about it at the time because the only thing I wanted to do was get back on the field. And ignorance is bliss. The only thing I knew was doctor told me what's wrong. The team told me what's wrong. Doctor hands me some pills. This speeds up the recovery. I get back and play football. But after thinking about it and seeing guys like Calvin Johnson, Gronk, Percy Harvin come out, these guys were advocates of, cannabis and CBD when it was still kind of taboo. And to answer this the very long-winded way, if the world, more specifically the nation, is lifting the taboo connotation off of cannabis, CBD, and medical marijuana, how come the league hasn't yet?
Right. I was going to go Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson and walk down that road with you, but let me ask you one more question because we're talking about something similar. And the Trent Williams situation to me was really interesting because I've talked to a bunch of former players who told me once you realize that teams treat you like a piece of meat, you're either better with it or there's no turning back. Do you think that's where Trent Williams is after having surgery to remove cancer from his head? Like, how much of this is, oh my God, I'm just going to try and get as much money as I can out of this and move on, and how much of it is, I feel like I'm just being treated like lesser than a human being?
I think majority of it is how the team treated him when it came to the tumor. And I don't know the specifics or the details, but what I do know is when somebody that you have faith in, which is the organization and the medical staff, tell you one thing, and then you go get a second opinion and a third opinion, and you hear something else, it's so disheartening. Because you got to think about it, man. We spend the majority of our time with our teammates, our coaches, and because of the rigors of the job, the training room, and the medical staff. So this becomes family. Like, imagine if your wife or your husband, for those watching, or someone really close to you, your mom, your father, just told you a bold-faced lie, and then you found out from multiple people that they lied to you. Like, you'll be crushed. That's what it's like when an organization, or specifically a doctor and then the team, get together and they tell you something about an injury. And because we just have blind faith, it's like, there's no way they lied to me because they're paying me so much. Like, I'm the car that they want on the tracks. So, of course, they're going to make sure that I get the right mechanics to work on me, but that's not always the case. If your injury is supposed to be 6 weeks, their job is to get you back in 3, maybe even 2. Now, if there's something going on in the offseason that might be detrimental to my future, but in the meantime is beneficial to the team's success, they're going to lead you astray. And I feel like this situation with Trent, that's what it was. I don't think they were completely transparent with what was going on. What I can say now is on the grand level of every single team, I see more honest medical staffs. And that's because of situations like this. Right. That's because of guys having the intelligence and really guys having the ability to say, you know what, I want a second opinion. Because it used to be, this is how it would go. You get injured, and the team would say, all right, come to the training room. Here's your injury. Here's the MRI results. Here's the X-ray results. No. You don't need to go anywhere. Don't worry about it. You don't need to go see a second opinion. We got you. Don't worry about it. You're good. Come here. Give me a hug. And they'll give you a hug, and you're like, all right, I'm straight. But now most athletes are saying, just in case, let me go talk to somebody else. Because as much as the money is going to pad our pockets, our worst fear as athletes is to wake up one day at a very ripe age of 40 or 50 and not be able to walk around the block with our wives or throw the ball in the front yard with our kids. And when any situation gives you that glimpse, you're like, I can't do this. I can't connect with somebody that once led me astray. So, without knowing all the details about it, I think that's where Trent's at. And to be honest with you guys, I played 11 years in football. So, yes, there were times where a team doctor told me something and I found out it was completely false. The most revealing thing I ever found out about myself was when I did my own exit physical on my career, not with my team. But once I was done, removed from the game, and I realized I wasn't going back, I went in Manhattan Beach to a completely unbiased doctor, wasn't connected to the NFL. And these were people that had no dog in the race. They weren't making money off of me. We weren't suing the NFL. I just wanted to find out what happened to my body over the last decade. And every injury, just about every injury, I think wasn't told to me in its totality. I feel like most of my injuries were downplayed. And part of it is it's the psyche of an athlete. You don't tell them how bad it is because that way you're more likely to come back faster. And then secondly, it's more beneficial to the team if a guy doesn't panic and feel like he can't play. But I remember sitting in that office looking at my x-rays, going through my MRIs, and him telling me about injuries that I never had. Think about that. He was like, oh, man, so when did you break your ankles? I'm like, I never broke my ankles. Yeah, you definitely broke your ankles. Look right here. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because I had high ankle sprains. They're like, yeah, well, they can also tell you that you had an ankle sprain, but really there were small fractures in your ankles.
Wow.
It's just a play on words. And, if somebody says you sprained or strained a ligament, I'm finding out that I tore these things. I thought I just stretched it, as the team doctor told me, or I strained it, as the team doctor told me, or I sprained it. They're like, no, you get that if you strain something, it's a partial tear. So you tore this, this, and this. These two actually snapped. That's why you had surgery. And it was one of those wow moments. And I think most athletes now, they understand that their body is much more important than the dollars that they're being handed.
Nate, I'm hearing that story with Tim and with everyone watching and listening, and I'm realizing how lucky you were when you left, considering what you just told us, that you can still have a different life, that you can still have a new career and do the things that you're doing. So that medical visit you had is over. You go home and you're thinking what?
I'm thinking to myself, I need to go communicate with my wife about these new injuries. So when the weather gets cold and I start feeling aches and pains, she doesn't think these are phantom injuries that I'm creating off the top of my head. I reach out to the NFL. I ask for the nearest psychologist and psychiatrist just so I can figure out how to take all these thoughts, digest them, and then move on with my next chapter. And then after that, I had to figure out a way to get healthy because my body was more beat up than I thought it was. It was a little disheartening, but it also was what I heard when I first got in the league. I remember as a rookie, the OGs telling me the age of death is 10 years earlier for a football player. We're going to deal with things that the average man doesn't have to. And the very young and stupid Nate thought, that'll never be me. I'm too healthy. I'm fine. I'm good. My mind and my body will always be strong. And at 33 years old, I realized my mind and my body was a little bit weaker than it was when I came in the game. So when I finally came to the realization that I had to deal with a new car, in a sense, I was okay with it. I was fine. Because the Corvette that I walked into the NFL with at 21 years old, that was no more. Now I'm like a utility SUV. I mean, I can get around, just not as fast. So it's one of those things that I try to talk to these young guys about is when you're injured, make sure you go find out every single bit of information you can. And if the team gets offended that you get a second, third, and fourth opinion, then screw them. But also, though, if you're hurt, you understand you can play through that. So it's a very delicate balance that these guys have to play. But I think right now guys are more educated than ever. I don't see guys milking injuries. That's the one thing I can't say. I don't sit back, as a guy removed from the game and say to myself, the league has gotten soft. These guys are milking injuries and collecting checks. That rarely happens in the NFL. I think now guys are too smart for that.
I'm glad we did this. And we're going to break down the week, but I remember the most jaw-dropping question I ever had answered was when I turned to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who I used to do play-by-play for. I looked at the O-lineman going through an airport and go, when did you realize that you would never be healthy again? And all of them had an answer. Literally, they looked at me and said, university, second year university, third year university. And I try and bring that to this table all the time because I don't think people who watch the game understand everything that goes on. And you and I, Sid, have had this conversation. Yeah. So I'm glad, Nate, that you brought it to the table because it's different coming from you than it is coming from my fat head.
Yeah, listen, I'll be quick. I know we got to move on and talk about the games. But after I left that meeting with those doctors, I walked away realizing that during my career, I broke my midfoot. I broke both ankles. I tore my ACL, my LCL, my PCL. I broke my right leg. I broke my arm, my finger. I tore my thumb. I tore my elbow. I had that surgery on that. Separated both shoulders, broke a rib, broke a nose, and I had multiple concussions. And the thing about these injuries people don't understand is once a guy says he's healed up, that doesn't mean he's healed up. We're still dealing with the physical scars and then the mental scars. So when you hear about a football player dealing with certain things and leaning on certain vices, I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying it's right. All I'm saying is have some sensitivity to guys that are dealing with much more than the average guy.
Nate, I know,
games, yeah.
I know you want to talk about the games. Two things. One, we're out of time. Two,
come on, man.
Listen, no, hold on. We're going to talk about week 9. Listen, sometimes life gets in the way, and I appreciated this conversation a lot. So I think it's a good place to end it. We appreciate you. Our viewers, our listeners appreciate you, and we thank you for your time, Nate. The candor was incredible today, and we love you. Thanks, man.
All right, I'll say this, though, real quick. A tall ask for the Ravens, but if Lamar Jackson can rush for over 125 yards and Mark Ingram can rush over 100, they'll win the game. But if they don't do that, they have no chance.
I hope they win it, because if they don't win this game, I'm not going to watch another AFC game for the rest of the year because the Patriots are rolling. I just need the Ravens to make this interesting. Okay,
I may have them on the money line, but whatever.
No, that's not true. Not true. We'll talk about it another day. Thanks, man.
All right.